I'm Catherine, and I'd like to thank you for watching Ms. Yarn. This video is on how to make a double knit rib stitch scarf on the Zippy Loom. You can loom knit this plush reversible scarf in just a half day. That's because double knitting makes things go faster, and also the jumbo yarn will help make this project very speedy. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please click subscribe so you don't miss my easy to follow loom knitting tutorials. Today we're going to cover number 1, how to cast on, number 2, how to do the rib stitch, number 3, how to add new yarn, and number 4, how to bind off. As for supplies, you'll need 3 balls of yarn. I used Red Heart Grande, 4 Zippy Looms arranged in 2 rows, a piece of scrap yarn, a hook, a pair of scissors, and a yarn needle. So let's get started by casting on. First, we're going to tie a very loose knot at the side of our loom. Next, we'll do a figure 8 cast on, so we'll wrap the top peg counterclockwise and the bottom peg clockwise, and we're going to make figure 8s like this all the way to the right. And you're going to notice that we're completely twisting around each peg. So now I'm at the last pair of pegs. So after wrapping the top one, I'm just going to go straight down with my yarn and wrap the bottom peg once, and then I'm going to re-wrap the top peg. And now I'm going to make new figure 8s all the way to the left. I'm putting the new figure 8s just right over top of the old figure 8s. So now I'm at the very left of my loom. I'm going to pull the yarn upwards, and I'm just going to wrap it around that top peg, and I'm going to knit over to lock it into place. And what I mean by knitting over is that I'm using my hook, and with the help of the grooves, I'm taking that bottom loop and I'm putting it towards the center of the loom. So I'm knitting over all of those 8 bottom loops on the top row. And then I'm going to move on to the bottom row. Now that very last peg just has 1 loop, and that's okay. We're just going to skip it. We're just going to knit over the 7 bottom loops of the bottom row. So we're not quite done with our cast on just yet. We're going to be pulling on these knots to get rid of the slack. So start at the right and pull out the extra yarn from these bumps one by one. The goal here is to avoid having really loose loops on this edge of the scarf. We want the edge to be the same width as the rest of the scarf. And you will only know how much yarn you need to take out by doing a swatch beforehand. I will put up a picture to show you how much yarn I took out, but this is what worked for me, and it may be different for you. So just keep on going by removing that extra yarn and work your way all the way towards the left. I learned about this little hack from 2 different YouTubers. I'll link above to one of those videos if you want to have a look. Now we're going to undo the knot that we had tied to the loom at the very beginning, and we're going to pull that tail towards the left, and we'll take all of the extra yarn with us. Next, we're going to tie a knot with the tail and the working yarn, and we'll lay the tail across the loom. We'll get out our anchor yarn next, and we'll lay that across the loom as well. And we'll tuck in the tails inside that little slot of the loom. And you can tuck in the gray tail as well. This anchor yarn is going to help us pull down the scarf as we make progress. And if you have enough yarn, you can also tie a knot with your anchor yarn. And now that both the anchor yarn and the tail are laying across the loom, they're both going to get woven in as we do the rib stitch. So now your cast on is done. Now before we start the rib stitch, I want you to look at the 8 pairs of pegs on the loom, and I want you to see the pattern that we'll be making. So as you can see, we're touching the pairs 1, 3, 5, and 7, but we're skipping 2, 4, and 6. So let's start by wrapping the top peg of the first pair, and then we're going to wrap the bottom peg of the third pair and the top peg of the third pair, and we're just going along the outside. Then we're going to the fifth pair, the bottom peg first and then the top peg, and again we're just working on the outside and we're not twisting anything. And then we're going to the seventh pair, and then we're going to go to the eighth pair so that we can turn things around. And now we're going to wrap all of the pegs that we had missed when we were working towards the right. So now all 16 pegs of this loom should have 2 loops on them. And now we're going to knit over all of the bottom loops. Okay, so I'm going to start on the left side. I'm going to be working towards the center. And then I'm going to go to the top row, and I'm going to knit over those loops. And I believe that when we knit over, we should be starting at the outside of our loom and then working our way towards the center. If anyone has more experience with this stitch and wants to chime in, please feel free to leave a comment. But so far that worked for me. As long as I was starting with the outer pegs and worked inwards, I seem to have a more even edge. Now, I did do an experiment with my third ball of yarn where I knit over the loops on one row left to right and then the next row right to left, and it turned out kind of uneven, so I don't recommend that. So knit over from the outside in as much as possible. So here we're starting row 2 and we're working our way towards the right. And then at the end of our loom, we're turning directions, and then we're going to wrap around the pegs that we had missed as we were working left to right. And we're going to lock that loop into place so it doesn't move. And then we're going to knit over. And again, we're trying to work from the outside towards the inside. Okay, great. So it looks like row 2 is done now. And so what you're going to do is you're going to keep doing the rib stitch until you run out of yarn. And we'll meet again to add a new ball of yarn. See you soon. So now at this point, I've used up one ball of yarn and I'm ready to add a new ball of yarn. In my left is the old yarn, in my right is the new yarn. So I'm going to tie a knot here, and I'm going to go right over left, and then left over right. And then I'm going to pull very tightly on all 4 of those strands. So I'm also going to snip off the ends, and I'm going to try to do that close to the knot. And that is the technique that I learned during my Girl Guides, and it works for me. So this is an easy knot that personally works for me, given that I'm using the same color and I wanted something easy to do. But there are lots of other ways out there to add new yarn that you can try as well. So now that I have added a brand new ball of yarn, I'm going to continue with my rib stitch, and I'm going to use a third ball of yarn too. So let's knit on our own at this point, and we're going to meet again when it's time to bind off. So now our scarf is at our desired length, so we're going to take it off the loom. So since my tail is at the right, I'm going to bind off from the left. And I find it easier to bind off with my fingers rather than bind off with a crochet hook. So I'm going to remove the top and bottom loops off that first set of pegs. And I'm going to take that bottom loop and I'm going to put that inside the top loop. And then the working loop is going to be pulled upwards. Then I'll take off the bottom loop. I'm going to insert that into the loop. So now you'll take the next top loop off of the peg and you'll put that inside the loop that I'm calling the working loop. And then you're going to tug on your yarn upwards and you'll take the next bottom loop off of your loom. You'll put that inside the working loop. You'll pull upwards again. And then you're moving on to the next top loop and you're putting that inside. So you'll keep binding off like this until you reach the right side of your loom. I find this bind off to be a bit tricky, so I highly recommend that you do a swatch first so you can practice not only binding off but also casting on. I'll show you a picture above of the swatch that I had made. And doing different swatches is going to help you decide if this bind off is right for you. I had tried different bind off methods myself, and this is the one that I liked the best. So now we're at the last pair of pegs of our loom, and we're going to put the bottom loop inside the working loop, and we'll put the top loop inside that loop, and we're going to pull on it upwards a bit. And now with the tail, we're going to put the tail inside that very last loop of our scarf. So now we can remove the scarf from the loom, and it feels really great to be almost done. So I've tightened up that last knot, and I find our braided edge here to be very nice and neat. So I think the bind off worked very well. So now we're going to weave in that tail. So I'm threading my yarn needle. I'm just cutting off this excess tail since I don't need so much. Now you can weave in the end along the bottom edge of your scarf. And then you can snip off the remaining yarn. So now that the tail of the bind off edge has been woven in, let's go back to the cast on edge. So we can just cut off that gray tail, and we'll also cut the anchor yarn and pull it out. And now our double knit rib stitch scarf is finished, and it's plush and thick and very lovely. If you liked this Ms. Yarn video, please do subscribe to my channel, and you're also welcome to leave a comment or to like this video. Thank you, and see you soon.